Before you guys listen to the stories, could you please help support us by liking and subscribing to this new channel? Most of you watching aren't subscribed, so please help us grow. We really appreciate it. Now on to the stories. When my buddies and I set out to hike the remote Spider Canyon trails, we expected majestic desert views and a peaceful, breezy trek. What we got instead was way more unsettling. From the start, things felt kinda off during the hike. The canyon was strangely void of any wildlife chatter or noise. Just our isolated footsteps crunching the dusty path surrounded by towering red rock walls on all sides. We tried making small talk to ease the uncomfortable silence, our voices sounding small and muffled against the vast emptiness. But after a few miles, even we quieted down and just kept a brisk pace towards our planned destination point to set up camp for the night. Out of nowhere, my friend grabbed my shoulder and stopped abruptly. "Hey man, did you hear that?" he asked with visible unease. We all froze and listened intently for a few moments, looking around nervously. All remained still and utterly quiet. "Hear what, bro?" I finally replied. A few of the guys chuckled to break to the tension. "Nah man, I swear I heard something. Like a voice or something. Real low whispering sound over there," my buddy insisted, pointing towards the high ridge. We craned our necks searching, but there was nothing unusual in the stark landscape. We continued walking, senses now heightened to any odd sounds against the weird lulling silence. Until maybe 10 minutes later, it happened again. This time we all paused and exchanged freaked-out glances as the faintest whispering seemed to surround us. But scanning the canyon, there wasn't a soul in sight for what must have been miles in this isolated place. As minutes ticked by, the freaky whispers returned at random intervals, always just quiet enough that we couldn't understand any actual words. But the hushed murmurs were clearly human-sounding voices, and not just desert wind gusts. It was way unnerving not knowing the source. "I say we get out of here, man. This place is too creepy," muttered Miles, our most jittery member, already spooked by the eerie setting alone without mystery whispers now. Several guys agreed as the bizarre sounds persisted with no logical explanation. My curiosity battled growing fear as we continued on hoping to reach our site soon. This phenomenon was totally baffling and honestly scared me too. But some deep instinct kept pushing me forward, wanting to understand it. The surrounding air seemed to grow heavier and electrified as the sun hung low behind the shadowy cliffs. Each faint human mumble stood out sharper now against the background quiet. Every time those murmurs came, our group froze and listened intently, faces taut with unspoken tension. Two of my buddies insisted we turn back immediately. They had zero interest in being part of any paranormal business, even for sake of fleeting curiosity. But with nightfall approaching, I argued we should keep advancing to reach our destination spot, rather than scrambling around lost in the dark. Reluctantly, they agreed, but our former playful mood turned silent and brooding as we marched quicker. Strange phenomena aside, the canyon became supremely eerie at sunset. Rocky walls swathed in deepening purple shadows. It felt almost suffocating, like the narrow gulch might slam shut and trap us wanderers by nightfall. Miles nearly peed himself when the whispers morphed after a while into faint cries and muffled screams echoing around us. Those alarming wails spiked our hearts with primal panic, evoking visions of tortured ghostly souls trapped in rock-walled abyss. But scanning every ledge and crevice, we still saw no visible culprits for the growing poltergeist sounds. By the time we staggered into our makeshift site, frayed nerves were shot. Shadows seemed to dance and flutter at edge of our vision like specters laughing at our cowardly unease. A couple guys brought guns tucked in their packs and laid those out close by as we hastily set up camp, keeping heads low and avoiding eye contact. An unspoken terrified thought likely filled each mind. Were we vulnerable prey being stalked by some desert-maddened attackers keen to separate us from the safety of numbers? Or perhaps tormented ghosts of slain travelers condemned our trespassing here, thirsty to swell their ranks with fresh wandering spirits? Either way, no one slept more than fitful minutes that night as the whispers waxed and waned ominously, till dawn finally came to extinguish our waking nightmares. Needless to say, we remained armed and on high alert till making record time hauling all gear back down canyon soon as sunlight hit. No further sounds bothered our exhausted group's departure, thankfully. But we didn't rest easy until miles away from that godforsaken gulch. To this day, none of us have returned to solve the mystery. I'm no stranger to hiking and have logged hundreds of desert miles near my hometown. But last weekend's trek with buddies to Hidden Canyon will haunt me forever. We expected awesome landscapes for pics, not supernatural terror that still gives me chills. The day started normal enough, just 4 dudes laughing with excitement to conquer new terrain. We felt cocky tallying gear and supplies, certain this would be another conquering feat for our nature resumes. Man, were we naive. First couple hours maintained calm despite the uneasy quiet blanketing the gorge's reddish cliffs. Not even lizards or birds seemed to inhabit the place. Our lone footsteps and murmurs echoed too loud, announcing trespassers breaching ancient solitude. We should have just turned back then and there before breaking nature's sacred silence. But no, we kept pushing farther into the canyon's depths like foolish rebels begging ghosts to punish our intrusion. We felt the atmosphere begin shifting miles deeper along the path. Shadows fell darker from the beetling stone walls despite midday sun high above. Gusty breaths of wind turned ice cold against sweaty skin. The utter lack of wildlife disturbed our senses that danger lurked. But we laughed off those instincts as jitters, denial keeping us ambling towards disaster. Then Jake froze first, hissed for us to shut up, in a frantic whisper. Decaying echoes of our banter instantly died as we scanned the cliffs, ears straining into painful focus. Jake's face paled and eyes bugged from unseen specters. We heard it too, the voices murmuring all around us from every direction. Their slithering whispers filled Hidden Canyon, definitely human-sounding, but somehow too ancient and ominous to belong to living beings. Our hearts raced as we spun searching for physical culprits, but only ageless stone walls flanked the 4 of us alone on that dusty trail, the disembodied voices invading from thin air. "Screw this place, man. Let's bounce," Jake pleaded, voice cracking from dry-mouthed fear. Chad and I hesitated, gazing ahead where the main valley path disappeared around a cliff bend. We'd come so far already. Part of me needed to know the source, solve the mystery. Another ethereal whisper breezed past, raising goosebumps despite the sweltering temperature. Chad gulped loudly next to me and gave a determined shake before pulling out his phone and navigate us back quick. But reception had totally tanked way out here in the canyon belly. We were stranded blind. The phantom murmuring continued sporadically, increasing in volume whenever wind gusted. The words almost formed discernible phrases before scattering apart as garbled nonsense. The overall effect remained bone-chilling just the same. We scrambled back faster, anxious to exit the cursed chasm. Clearly we disturbed older powers which the ancient stones now allowed to torment us for trespassing so far into Hidden Canyon's forbidden realm. Straining our ears between nerve-wracking whispers, we detected other sounds awakening to distant shrieks, and screams echoing across stone that made our blood run cold. They seemed to follow us as we scrambled desperately for Canyon's exit, sneakers kicking up dust in panicked strides. Nature's desert song had turned quickly macabre thanks to our reckless curiosity. All I could envision was angry spirits, outraged by disturbance, swooping in to claim 4 more lost souls to haunt the canyon forever. Surprisingly, none of us bolted outright or abandoned the others out of crazed self-preservation. Safety stayed in numbers as we raced that gauntlet together. After what felt like hours, the towering canyon walls gradually fell behind us into gentler foothills. The phantom voices and screams faded too until we finally collapsed in an exhausted heap. A mix of heaving sweaty flesh and tears of relief. Nobody suggested returning to recover abandoned gear we jettisoned to gain speed. We just clutched each other silently as daylight gradually faded, incredibly grateful to have escaped that harrowing hike alive and still sane. I'll never comprehend what happened down there in Hidden Canyon's eerie gorge full of disembodied murmurs. Maybe restless spirits guarding sacred ground we foolishly ignored warnings to avoid. Or some acoustic quirk carrying sounds bizarre distances. But I don't need firm answers to avoid that haunted valley forever now. This humbled survivor has found new respect for powers occupying places unknown to man. And mornings best heeded when nature falls too quiet, revealing secrets not ours to discover. We venture carelessly into her realms, at our own peril. When my friend suggested going off-trail to explore deeper into Benson Forest Preserve, it seemed like a cool adventure at the time. We were just feeling cocky after hiking a ton there already, knowing the place like the back of our hands. Or so we thought. Once night fell and unfamiliar animal sounds surrounded us, Our overconfidence turned to panic real fast out in those remote woods. Earlier in the day, the offshoot trail had looked pretty tame, maybe just overgrown from less foot traffic. Sunlight streamed brightly through the autumn trees as we strolled farther, joking around about finding some secret waterfall or abandoned shack from old homesteads rumored to have existed pre-preserved days. We felt invincible tromping deeper into nature's peacefulness. The landscape stayed gorgeous. Towering pines with leaves in full fall splendor, cute squirrels, and chipmunks scurrying around stocking up for winter. Jack pointed out some odd piles of sticks and dead branches arranged almost ritualistically around one area, which also had weird little stone cairns dotted about. Creepy, but we kept moving to see what else might lurk in these undiscovered forest acres. Mostly it was more of what we already knew and loved about Benson. Babbling brooks, mossy logs, lush ferns carpeting the forest floor. But no secret waterfalls or tumble-down buildings to our disappointment. And without obvious trail markers or map landmarks, we'd have gotten fully turned around direction-wise once twilight crept up. Trying to follow the sinking sun through dense trees, we hoped to intersect another familiar route back towards the main official trails and parking lot beyond. But the dimming light played tricks on our eyes and senses. We seemed to walk forever without breaking free of the thickening woods now filled with menacing shadows. Soon night fully descended, leaving us stumbling over roots and brush with only weak foam flashlights to guide our increasingly panicked search. Strange cries and grunts of unknown forest creatures echoed all around, setting our pulses skyrocketing. We couldn't tell what animals made those bizarre guttural sounds, or how near they were in darkness. Exhausted, we finally stopped moving to assess our next step. But as we stood there in tight formation, the animal noises seemed to focus straight at us from multiple directions. Branches and leaves rustled harder too, the disturbances noticeably heading our way. Either predators had our scents and stalked us as prey, or we inadvertently encroached on creatures who now frightened would attack these giant beings invading their habitat after nightfall had made them bold. Someone also suggested those earlier stick pyramids and rock piles could mark territorial boundaries or feeding grounds we blatantly disregarded in ignorance. However you parsed it out, things were not looking good for our lost group. No cell signal this deep and prevented calling for emergency rescue. Screaming for help would only antagonize unknown beasts even more. With legs trembled in cloves, soaked in panicky sweat, we knew staying immobile till sunlight was equally dangerous if savage animals scouted our location. In whispered debate, we decided trying to walk silently away from the loudest animal noises was our only gamble, at least putting some distance between them and us. Sticking tight together, we tiptoed slowly towards a random direction, frequently flashing our dimming phone lights and peering all around for any approaching attackers. It was a nightmare shuffle through darkened woods filled with alarming sounds of snapping twigs, rustling leaves, and guttural grunts that seemed to follow us close by in swirling chaos. Maybe there were multiple animals now toying with us lost stumblebums, delighted for some dramatic midnight entertainment before moving for the inevitable kill. Hands down the most terrifying night of our lives. Not sure what benevolent spirit guided us, but after eternal suffering, we spotted the blessed parking lot through thinning trees and collapsed in desperate tears near our cars. As daylight later returned, rangers did locate our route and easily followed the trail we described. But they found no warning cairns, ritual stick markers, or even much wildlife where we all recalled so much paranormal movement and noise. I know what we endured out there while lost off trail overnight. But according to reasonable park authorities, nothing actually stalked us, and none have dared join me these past years when I return yearly to recreate that fateful hike, needing to solve lingering mysteries about what might inhabit the unseen depths of Benson Forest after nightfall.